Everybody wants a really unique place to live. Have you ever considered a castle? We're going to tell you if it's worth being that different in today's online campus.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Online Campus. My name is Jesse, I'm the Online Campus Pastor. I'm here with Carrol, our Senior Pastor, and we want to welcome you to a campus that streams anytime, anywhere.
Portico is one church, one message, many expressions. Means every campus studies the same thing every week, but it's expressed very differently. In our on-demand campus, we take you anywhere we want to, but we get right to the point and we let you know kind of some of the insights and how to live out what the whole church is studying. And this week we are talking about daring to be different.
Daring to be different.
Not always wanting to fit in. So we came to this castle. This is a very different place. This is Dundurn Castle in Hamilton. It doesn't open till noon, and we're here way too early. We thought it'd be open.
Yeah, we thought it'd be open. We thought we can go inside and run upstairs and run back down, but
we're outside of the castle. And were there ever any things in your life that like you did totally differently so that you fit in? Like you're like, everybody else is doing this, I'm just doing it because I want to fit in.
Definitely. So when we came to Canada, we were trying to figure out what are the Canadian things to do. And so I remember I was at school, we had maple syrup, right? You gotta pet a beaver, right? It's the obvious thing to do. But I remember a school trip where we were going skating, and so I said to myself, I could totally do that. Not really letting anyone else know that I can't skate, and it was a disaster. Broke my ankle.
Get the African Middle Eastern out there.
Oh my goodness, yeah, it was horrible. Yeah, I bruised my ankle, and it was not fun. So
I was a couple years ago. I don't know. Do you remember the fedoras?
Yeah.
So I had a number of fedoras.
Oh, nice.
I've seen you recently wearing socks and sandals. So
I must elaborate. It's actually socks and slides. It's a basketball thing, and so.
And now it's back in again. Right?
Back in again.
But there's all kinds of ways that we go totally against who we are because we're like, oh, everybody else is doing it. I guess I should do it too. And there's actually a story that we're going to study out of the Bible this week, where the Israelites, the Jews, they actually wanted a king and they wanted a castle because everybody else had a king and a castle, and it was not who God created them to be. So they leave who they are and they change who they are just to fit in.
Yeah, well, God called them to be different, right? And who likes being different, especially when you got to stick out, right? Yeah. Nobody wants that, and nobody likes the feeling of that. And I guess that's very similar to how Israel felt.
Yeah. So let me teach you what the Bible has to say about daring to be different. If we go back way to the beginnings of the nation of Israel, God designed it so that the people would never have a king. He would be their only leader. They would have priests and they would have prophets, and those individuals would help give the messages of God to the people, but they were never designed to have a king who ruled over them. So as their nation started growing, the people started looking around at all the other nations and trying to figure out, how come they have a king and they have a king, but we don't get to have a king? So at some point, they go to the prophet Samuel, and they say in 1 Samuel chapter 8, we want to be like the nations around us. Our king will judge us and lead us into battle. And Samuel's like, whoa, guys, this is a big shift from how God designed you to be. You don't want to do this, because if you have a human earthly king, they're going to treat you like other human earthly kings do, and they're going to be, they're going to tax you, they're going to take your kids into wars, and they're going to rule over you instead of having a loving God be your leader. But the people said, we don't care. We just want to be like everybody else. And we get like this sometimes. We start thinking that, hey, we see how other people act and we see what is common in our society, and we think that's what's best for us. But if we desire to be common like everybody else, the results we're going to get in our lives are common. God has actually designed us to live very differently. He's designed us to be sacrificial. He's designed us to love people who actually hate us. He's designed us to live in a different way so that we would reflect who He is. But that's hard for us sometimes. So the people come to Samuel, they make this request, and Samuel's like, no, I'm not even going to let you do it. But as amazing as God is, here's what his response is. Do everything they say to you, the Lord replied. For they are rejecting me, not you. They don't want me to be their king any longer. And that's got to be so heartbreaking for God, who created them and loved them and just wanted to have a relationship with them. But he said, you know what, if people are that desperate to be like everybody else, I'm going to let them. So the challenge is for us to think, do we want to be more like the God who created us and loved us and stand out from the world? Or do we want to actually just fit in with the world and have the same results that they do?
So you might be asking yourself, what does this mean for me? Well, in a way, realizing that God calls us to be different from everyone else gives us a sense of relief. Relief from what? Well, it's relief from the pressures to fit in. There's a reason that conformity is often referred to as peer pressure. It's because it can be incredibly challenging to go with the crowd, especially when the crowd is pursuing habits and patterns that are contrary to the things of God. Think about it. What types of things are we expected to conform to in our culture? Perhaps it's things that are centered around status and money and power and fame. And for what? What is the reward in all of this at the end of the day? Well, it's very short-lived, I can tell you that. You see, in our world where there's this pressure to conform, think, and behave like everyone else, even if it means compromising our faith and spiritual integrity. I remember feeling this way, especially in my first year of college. While some of my friends would talk about the opposite sex in objectifying and dishonoring ways, as some would talk amongst themselves on the latest drinking parties they had attended or other things that just didn't glorify God, I remember feeling different. And in those moments, I was challenged with this thought: is it profitable for me to compromise who God has called me to be for the sake of temporary acceptance, or is it profitable for me to hold on to who God has called me to be for the sake of eternal gain? You see, understanding that God calls us to pursue things beyond this world is liberating. It takes a load off of our shoulders as we focus on living for a God who is loving, wise, and redemptive, instead of living for a system whose end is chaos, confusion, sorrow, and destruction. It means that we are no longer defined by the limiting ambitions of this world. Instead, within the kingdom of God, we have the opportunity to be more than what society tells us we need to be. Where society has tried to place labels on us, God reminds us that He has set us apart and has made us uniquely different so that we can understand His nature and be effective to those around us. God reminds us that we are to live for His kingdom than to strive in building our own.
So listen, after hearing a talk like this, we got a challenge for you to be different in the way that you live your life. And what's not common is to be part of a church community. But if you actually want to figure out who God is, have a relationship with God, you're going to have to be different than the rest of the world. So I'm going to challenge you. Maybe you've never taken the step to be part of a church community by coming to a church service. I want to challenge you to come out to one of our church services on a Sunday morning. You can do it in person. You can come to one of our campuses. They can do it online. You're there every Sunday online.
Yeah, you could do it online. You could also plug into a growth group. These are all amazing opportunities for you to stay engaged in what God is doing. Finally, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this channel, share this video with a friend, anyone you know that could benefit from hearing this message. Next week, we will continue with our Points of Interest series, so we look forward to seeing you. But until then, have an amazing day.